Hello, it's Anita at Ubrink Studio again. Welcome. It's all about transferring a design onto soluble film and then stitching it and dissolving it. If you haven't had a go, it's great fun and I do recommend you try using it. If you want to do 3D objects, or if you want to work a way of transferring your designs without worrying about drawing or without worrying about whether it looks perfect, this is an easy way of doing it. I literally have just traced a picture and then stitched it on a machine using 3-motion embroidery, and I haven't even used a modern machine. I've used the good old Benina. If you've got any questions, you can email me on admin@ubrinkstudio.co.uk, or you can give me a call on 01553 762 115, or just message me. You can get all the information that you need on my website, which is www.eaubrinkstudio.co.uk. Enjoy. Sorry, it's been a while since I've posted something, but there is good reason, as in I'm cleaning out the studio, so there's mess everywhere and not much time to do much work or sewing. Something that people ask me quite often is how I manage to transfer designs without using anything specific technology wise. So I'm just going to briefly show you a quick way of transferring a design, especially if you don't like drawing, which I don't. I prefer to trace things, and that's me purely being lazy and not having to keep messing about with stuff. So I'm just going to adjust the camera angle so that you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to take a print from an old embroidery transfer paper. So I have my blanket underneath here, which gives it a little bit of springiness so that I can see what I'm up to a lot easier. Okay, now this is an old anchor thread embroidery, hopefully you can see that, transfer page, which I absolutely love, these old ones. And here I have some tracing paper. This is blue paper. You can get tracing paper in any colour. And I'm just going to trace off this design here. Just quickly. I'm not being very gentle with it. I'm not worrying about whether I actually get them on the lines or not. It's just to get the general design. I could photocopy it, which is another way of doing it. However, I prefer to do it this way. You may be thinking to yourselves, why on earth doesn't she just transfer it using the transfer? And the very simple answer is, if I do that, I no longer have my design. It's gone. This is a crewel work design. One of my favourite types of embroidery is crewel work. I don't tend to teach it if I can help it, though I have with 1 or 2 people, helped them along, because I do think that you have to keep some things for yourself, and that's one of the things that I like to keep for me. So just going through these lines. Doesn't take long to do this. And then we're going to stitch it using 3-motion embroidery. So there you have it. There's my design. Okay. Now what I am going to do take that piece of paper away from there. I'm going to put a white piece underneath so that I can see it better. Okay, and I'm going to go over it again so that it's still the same way. So I have the design is on that side, so it's design side down. And just again, it's just like a rough sketch really, not doing a great deal. Don't need a lot of detail on it. One thing that I would say is don't press too hard if you've got a mat or a blanket underneath, as I have, because if you do, you could just end up with holes in your paper, especially if your pencil is very, very sharp, which mine isn't. Just go around this bit. Nearly done. There are many ways that you can transfer pictures, transfer your designs onto your fabric, or if you're making cards, onto card. And we will go through some of them over the next few weeks. There we go. Okay. So there it is. I'm now just going to show you how to set up a hoop with some soluble film so that we can make this into a 3D piece if we wanted to. So we're looking at hoops. They come in different sizes, and for using under a sewing machine you can either use these, which are spring loaded, so they're much easier to use. I have to confess at this point I actually don't like using hoops, but I need to show you how to do it. So when you buy your hoop, it comes like this. You have two pieces and you have a screw top, which is what's going to tighten it for when you're sewing. So you unscrew it a bit and you separate your two pieces. Now we're going to be using soluble film. This is how it comes. Now it's quite a heavyweight one that I have here, because this is what I prefer to use. You can get soluble fabrics as well, you can get lighter weight ones. It all really depends on what it is that you want to do with it. So it's a little bit like plastic, and you can draw on it, write on it, do whatever you want on it. Okay, and what we're going to do is transfer our design onto it. Like so. And don't forget, you do need enough around it for you to be able to get your hoop on. You don't necessarily have to have your hoop to cover the whole piece. You can do a little bit or a larger bit. Okay, so just using an ordinary pen, I'm now going to transfer my design onto my soluble film. And again, I'm not being too precious about getting it perfect. And you'll see why when we're stitching it. The trick with doing free motion stitching with soluble film is making sure that as you sew, you connect all the stitches, because if you don't, all that's going to happen is they're going to all come undone once you've dissolved this. So you'll know that you've done it right if that doesn't happen. This is quite a simple design, but there are areas where I'm now linking up the lines because they weren't. So for example, the vein on the leaf here, I don't know if you can see that very well, kind of came halfway up the leaf, so I'm making sure that it joins right to the very end, otherwise it will just come undone. And the same on this one round on this side, and we do the same with all the petals. Okay, every line has to join. As we come round. So this curly line here, I'm going to just take it round and up, and I will do the same with that one so that they are joined. And we can put as much stitch on this as we like, so we can make it into a very solid piece, or we can make it into a piece that doesn't have any solid areas but it's all crisscrossed. So there is the design now on the soluble film. And before I cut this film, we're going to put it in the hoop. Okay, so because we're not quite sure what that noise is, I think it's the printer, but I could be wrong. Okay. So put your hoop piece down that hasn't got this on it at all. Then lay this over the top. Because it's see-through, I've got a feeling this one's broken actually. Yes, it is. Discard that because it's broken. And so back to here. So we've unscrewed this so that we can get this on where we need it. I'm going to get a pair of scissors and just cut that square out. So this is what we have at the moment. We then need to tighten this up. Because this has to be drum tight for this to work. Do you hear that? Drum tight. If you're not sure, just give it another little bit of a tighten, and you can use a screwdriver if you wish into it, but just be careful that you don't over tighten it because if it's over tight, all that's going to happen is you're going to be breaking the top of this. Okay, and we'll just go over to the sewing machine. Okay, so we're now at my trusty old Bernina, and it is an old Bernina, but I love it. I was very happy when I managed to get this. And with these Berninas, you can lift the foot whilst it's on the machine to get it to go through. So I'm hoping that you can see this, because if not, I've got to redo it. Okay, so just to show you again, we're going to be working not that way up, but that way up, so that it's inside, not on the outside. Right, and the first thing that we're going to do is an outline, but we need to bring our thread up first. So once you've got that through, just hold it. Okay, give it a couple of stitches and then snip, and you're good to go. Okay, so hold the hoop, not the actual work. This means that you can actually move this around whichever way you want to go. The machine, everything is set on 0, so the stitch length, the stitch width, everything is on 0 straight stitch, and I've also put the feed dogs down so that I've got that maneuverability. Okay, I don't have my cotton reels on the actual machine. I do have them on a stand because I buy the bigger ones and I find they go through a lot easier. So here we go, just a quick outline, and already I didn't secure it properly, so now I've got to thread the machine back up again. Or the needle anyway. Just that way shows you that things don't always go according to plan, do they? We will start again. I'm actually going to bring more of that through. I need to be able to grab. You see, I'm moving this around where I want it to go, not where it wants to go, and suddenly it's jammed underneath. Which probably... So we're just going to go round. You can go over them and over them again. Sorry about the noise, it's this silly table. So that's the outline done. I haven't been very careful with it because you don't need to be. You can just go where you like with it, really. One thing I tell my students to remember is when you are taking your foot off, when you're doing anything here, take your foot off. I'm using a variegated thread because I'm rather partial to them. Okay, now I'm just going to fill in this central bit so that you can see how the variegated threads can make your life so much easier. And the centre, I'm just going down round and round in circles. And then I'm going in bigger circles around the outside. Oh, and we've just broke a needle, which does happen. Make sure that you've got the needle piece. Okay. Again, I've taken my foot off the pedal because the last thing that we need is for me to start sewing and then sewing up my fingers. And I can tell you that that's happened to me before. Now I'm using metallic needles in this, Schmetz they are, purely because I like the fact that they've got a big eye, and because I'm using a synthetic thread it makes life a lot easier with these. Because of that big eye, they go straight in and gives it room to maneuver. If I was using a normal cotton rather than a synthetic one, I would probably just use a universal thread, universal needle, because they work just as well. But you need to find what works for your machine. All the different needles that you have all work with different weights of threads and with different cottons as well, and I see why that seems to have jammed under there. Don't be afraid of your machine. Be aware of the dangers of a sewing machine, but don't be frightened of it. Okay, so if we take that thread off there, and we can go back. Now I'm going to turn this round, assuming that we can just go across here. Okay. Take that thread out, because we no longer need that. Right, so this is a leaf. I want it to be lacy. Now going to do the same on the other side. Now if you want to, you can turn your design round, or you can just keep going. It all depends on what you like to do and how you like to work. Well, I'm doing a figure of 8. Which is giving me a really nice lacy effect. do now is change the thread, but I'm going to leave the thread at the bottom as the green, and this is quite a thin synthetic thread, and I'm going to put on a gutterman again using my stand rather than using my pins and holders on the machine. This is personal preference, it's not something that you have to do. You don't have to have a stand, you don't have to worry about where you're putting your thread. You know, this is what you would like to do with your machine, then do so. If you prefer to use all of the cotton holders on your machine, do that. It's all down to personal choice. So now on to the next part of our design. So I think what I'll do is come up one of these middle bits. Just zigzagging across, just moving it along, zigzagging away. Don't matter to me how fast or slow I'm going. I'm just going to continue with moving it across, and then going from the middle. Not sure what happened there. I may have made a hole. And then I'm going back to anywhere where I haven't managed to overlap it. Then I'm going to change the colour of the thread again, but this time I'm going for a solid colour, but I'm still leaving that same green underneath. Now I've got two areas that I want to put this in. Just to brighten it a little bit. Now I'm not cutting my threads, I'm just coming straight into this bit here. Because it's quite close. I'm just going round and round in a circle to fill that in. You see, it's building up quite nicely. I'm going to finish this and then I'll come back to you with the finished piece, ready for dissolving. So here's the flower finished. As you can see that I have been over every little piece. I hope I haven't missed anything, and if you're wondering what the back looks like, it's more or less the same as the front. It's just that it's all very green, which you would expect. Okay, so I'll just get a bowl of water and show you how to dissolve it. So here we have a cat litter tray, just a cheap one out of one of the pound shops, and I have got some water in here that is hand hot, so it's not cold and it's not hot. So this is our piece, if you remember, that we are now going to dissolve. Just literally pop it out of your frame. And this is a big piece to dissolve, and I can actually use that for something else. So what I'm going to do is cut it down, because little pieces can be used for other things, for when you're stabilizing anything that you want to stabilize. And while you're dissolving your film, this is when you get to find out if you've actually done your sewing correct or not, as the case may be. So we now have this, okay, and we're going to drop it in the water and it will start to dissolve. And just give it a few minutes. Encourage it if you feel you need to. You can poke and prod it, but I warn you, it does get a bit snotty. It's the only way you can describe it, as it's dissolving. So I'm just going to scoop that out and show you. See, very slimy at this stage. Now you can use this film to dissolve this to whatever degree you wish to dissolve it at. So if you want to shape your piece, don't dissolve all of the film out of it. If you want your piece to stay on a flat piece of work, then that's fine. Dissolve the whole lot. Okay, you can use the Soluble as a glue to hold your piece together, so you can shape it round things. And I'm going to completely dissolve this so you can actually see what I'm up to. And there it is. So that will become a 3D piece if I want it to be, or I can leave it as it is. I like the way it's all curled up so it looks more organic. I'm not bothered about whether it looks like a real flower or not. That's not the intention. The intention is to show you what you can do with Soluble. I hope you enjoyed that, and it's given you a little bit of inspiration to have a go for yourself. You can find Soluble film on any of the websites if you Google it. I usually buy mine from Art Van Gogh. And if you have any more questions, or if you want to know any more information, just contact me and I'll see if I can help you in whichever way I can. Thank you for watching. Bye bye, till next time.